Hi Naomi. So this report, effective hazard management, is only possible when events can be predicted. Discuss. I'll read through it on the flip cam, and then what I'll do as well is I will put you into a bracket of all the different segments that you'll be marked on, so you can have an overall grade as well. And then while I'm not in lesson, I need you to look back and look where you could improve your answer. Okay, that's if there is any. So in this report, well done, I will discuss if hazard management is only effective when events can be predicted. Good, you reworded the question. Events which are also known as tectonic hazards are hazards which result from the movement of the Earth's crust or mantle. Perfect. You've referenced it, and then also you've defined what you mean by hazard, which can be predicted and managed through management strategies, which are policies and ideas which minimise or reduce problems. Brilliant, you've referenced that as well. The model I will use is the disaster management cycle, Smith 96, to show how a range of strategies can be used and how these can lead into one another and affect how well a country copes. You are correct in that it does show how a country can cope. However, you haven't linked it back to the question. You haven't linked it back. I'll just write this down for you. Saying, so it demonstrates if management can only occur once the hazard has been predicted, or it can be managed regardless. That's what the key you need to link back to, because that's what you're trying to prove with this model. All right. You also need. I dropped you. You also need to show figure 1 needs to actually be stated in the main writing as shown in figure 1. So, for example, the model I will use is the disaster management cycle, Smith 96, as seen in figure 1. So you're linking the model into the text, okay? You have to do that. So that's a target for you. Your management figure, perfect, action in place in advance, immediate, check your spelling on that bad boy. Support, actions in weeks and months, structures built to help reduce the impact. Perfect, good model. The first two cases I will use to discuss how prediction and preparedness affect how effective management strategies are is Sendai earthquake and tsunami, which happened on 11th March 2011, and Kilauea, which has been erupting since 1983. So you've said you're going to show them, discuss how prediction, preparation affect how effective management strategies are. So you've said how effective they are, but you actually need to say if they're good or bad. So you said you're going to look at them, but you need to tell the reader, so what are they? You need to exemplify that these are extremely effective pre-hazard management strategies. Alright, you need to give them the signal that these will exemplify that regardless if you predict or you don't predict, because it's a volcano versus an earthquake, you can still have X results and they're still really effective even though it was challenging in the first place. Okay, I will then use MRAPI, which erupted in 2010, to see how management strategies during an event are effective and how in developing countries they have technology to help predict and effectively manage an event. Okay, so he said MRAPI, so he said how they predicted it, but then during kind of things go wrong, don't they? So regardless it was predicted or not, without strong salience of a government, things can still go wrong. Lastly, I will use Nyiragongo eruption on the 17th of January to show how reliance on aid and having a weak salience affects how effective management strategies are. Good. I will compare this to Indonesian tsunami, which happened on 26th of December 2004, to show how no protection but rapid response plays something side and how effective managed strategies are. Okay, fine. So you've told them the case you're going to use is a little bit weak on the first one between Sendai and Kilauea, but we've said that. But the others, yes, do give a reason why you're going to do it. Alright, So 1.1 methodology, there was nothing written there. So this is your third target, okay? You have got to write and practice writing that in time conditions, okay? It's not fair on yourself because that will take you at least 5 minutes to do, and at the moment we're kind of living in a kind of false kind of game then if you're not writing it in, but you know it's got to go in there. So if we go back to the mark scheme, so if we go to 9 to 10 marks, it says clear reference to title, yeah? Indication of framework, other by concepts or case studies, an accurate definition of key terms. If we jump to 6 to 8, some framework, incomplete definition. Well, you're not in that one, you're in the top bracket, you're in 9 to 10, but because your case study justification was a little bit weak in the beginning, I'm going to drop you a mark, and also for your model, you didn't reference it actually into the text as well, okay? And then some areas you still had parts where you could actually link back to the question, okay? Right, analysis. Effective management strategies before an event. Sendai earthquake and tsunami happened on 11th of March 2011. Japan is located on a destructive plate boundary with 4 plates involved in the Eurasian Pacific, North America and the Philippines. I'm so sorry, I'm yawning. Don't forget double P in Philippines. Plate. This caused, actually thinking back, could be double L in Philippines, sorry. This caused a magnitude 9 earthquake to occur, followed by a 10-foot tsunami with a 1 in 100, which was a 1 in 100 reoccurrence level or interval. I will compare this Kilauea, which has been erupting since 1983 and is located on a volcanic hotspot with a VI score of 0/1. You're right, I can see here, so your fourth target is your mini intro, not on management before the prediction, okay? So you need to say, why is effective management strategies good? What do they enable you to do? And give an example. Then go into the location, okay? So you're aware of that. Right, let's have a look at the points you make. When the earthquake in Sendai happened, they had a warning period of about 3 seconds, and for the tsunami, 10 minutes. This allowed for people to evacuate the area and reach a safe place out of the way. On the 1st of September every year since 1960, Sendai has Earthquake Day, where schools and emergency services carry out drills to educate them in what to do in the event of an earthquake. This meant that even though prediction for an earthquake is hard, as you only get a few seconds warning, people knew how to react, meaning no deaths occurred due to the earthquake. Okay, so you've put education warning with 10-minute warning for the tsunami from seismometers located around the area. Warning was able to be given to allow people time to evacuate. However, with a tsunami wave at 10 foot and swamping the seawall, which the deep in the walls at 7 foot, led to more than 16,000 people dying, and Japan's 5 trillion economy still suffering 2 years later. Okay, right, so you've got your point of education, which is really good. If you can hear my daughter in the background, just ignore her. A few seconds warning, people know how to react. Okay, so you've put that they have education, which means they can react, so when they don't have long to warn each other, well, by the warning systems, they can still save lives. Perfect. In Kilauea, predictions done very well through technologies such as tilt meters and the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, which allows them to constantly monitor the volcano and alert warnings prior to eruptions. With Kilauea having a GDP of 47,000, meant they could afford the technology needed to predict eruption. Also allowed them to put into place evacuation routes that were signposted and local people were educated on what to do through evacuation drills being carried out. The good prediction evacuation routes has meant that since beginning eruption in 1983, no deaths have occurred as a result of the eruption. Perfect. So you've gone for education, but also wealth. Sub-conclusion. Effective prediction strategies occur in both Sendai and Kilauea. Both countries have the necessary technology needed to predict the events. This is due to the fact that both countries have the wealth to enable them to do so, with Kilauea's GDP and Japan's at 5 trillion, enable predictions to be carried out. However, Hawaii's eruption only measures VI of 1, whereas Sendai's earthquake of magnitude 9 and a 10-foot tsunami, so the magnitude of both are very different, and so the speed of onset with earthquakes being much faster make it hard to predict them before an event. Right, at the end you need to now link to the question. What you also have to say is try and say hazard profile. Alright, because you keep saying speed of onset, magnitude, but hazard profile is a better geographical terminology to cover that. Okay? Right, effective management strategies during an event. 2.2. Right. Again, you're aware you need to do the mini intro of what it is to manage during an event and why it's only possible during a kind of a volcano or a secondary event of a tsunami. Merapi erupted in 2010 between the months of October and December with a VI of 3. Merapi is located on a destructive plate boundary where the Indo-Australian plate sits under the Eurasian plate. Merapi was constantly monitored before the eruption to enable them to put in place evacuation plans during an eruption. With prediction Merapi already in place meant that when an eruption occurred, management strategy is more effective. You have to say it's the Philippines. No, the Philippines Volcanic Observatory. Okay, that enables them to predict. So even though they're a low to middle income country, just ignore my daughter if you can hear her. When the eruption first began, evacuation zones were put into place with 5 kilometres of the volcano. These were later expanded to 20 kilometres while the eruption occurred. This led to 400,000 people being evacuated to emergency shelters outside the evacuation zone. However, due to many families relying on farming and livestock as their income with a GDP of 5,200, many returned home to try and save their livelihood. Also, with evacuation centres becoming overcrowded and food and water shortages occurring due to more people being evacuated than thought, led to more people returning home. To prevent this, the government bought people's crops and cattle to help stop people returning home to minimise losses. Right, what you haven't done here is, let me just go back to see where, right, that's number 5. Right, this is number 6, another target, is you haven't linked to the question at all. You've kind of used 2 pieces of vital information. You've said that they can evacuate effectively because they're prepared before the volcano, but then during it's not as effective, even though it was predicted, because people went back. You haven't specifically said that. You haven't made it clear, linking back to the question. You've just kind of left it for the reader to work out. There's no reference back to the question in that. Okay, so that's a good point. You always kind of finish every paragraph or every main theme or idea saying, this shows this was effective, this shows this management strategy did this shows that it was a secondary hazard and couldn't be predicted. Whatever it is, just go straight back to the question, constantly peel it back. Okay, here you've dumped 2 pieces of information which are good ones, but you haven't made them work for you. Okay, another management strategy that is in place during Merapi was that bodies were burnt in mass graves. 343,000 people died to prevent against disease spreading. Also, 45 hospitals were in place ready to treat people who had been injured during the eruption. This showed the management strategies throughout the eruption were effective. but link it back to prediction or not. Alright? They kind of knew that what possibly would happen, so they had them in place already, which proves that management strategies are effective if an event can be predicted, because this is a low to middle income country. Without even the prediction of the volcano, you know, deaths and injuries could have been a lot higher. So use that fact that you've done straight back to the question, okay? So sub-conclusion. Due to Merapi having prediction technology in place before the eruption, it meant that the management strategies during the eruptions and evacuation routes were made more effective, as people knew when to evacuate. However, remember your punctuation after however. Not all management strategies relied on prediction, like evacuation centres who were evacuated and people left due to being a low-income country. Compared to Kilauea, yes! Well done, my young lady, comparing to another case study. Both eruptions had predictions in place before, however, Kilauea was more successful throughout the eruption, as plans throughout the eruption were successful due to the fact that they had a higher DP and people were evacuated out of the dangers. But also, they had better technology. So they had the tilt meters, the boreholes, the mobile homes, they had the land use planning, they had real-time updates, they had the government to put the checks in place that people aren't allowed in those areas, only if you're a scientist or someone who lives there or owns the land. Alright, whereas in Merapi, they couldn't put all those checks in place. They knew what to do, but they were swamped by the number of people that were left, and then they lost trust in the government. Right, third one, 2.3, after the event. Right, well done you. Right, mini intro, let's have a look. Nyiragongo. So that was number 7, that target. Nyiragongo erupted on the 17th of January 2002 with a VI of 2. This will be compared to the Indonesian tsunami, which happened on the 20th of December 2004 with a 9 magnitude earthquake and a 10-metre tsunami. Using these two case studies, it will show how, due to a weak salience and weak management strategies, after the event were more due to salience and weak management strategies meant after the event were more effective in the Indian Ocean tsunami. Right. What you've done is you've launched straight into the model, but you haven't put the model into your paragraph writing. So you should say, see figure 1.2, where I have demonstrated blah 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 blah, sort of like poor management strategies before an event was predicted. But say these events can be predicted, but they're not because they can't afford to. Okay, so on your model, the government ignored warnings, I don't know what to do informed. Right, what you've done is here, I don't know if you're talking about IoT or the government or Nyiragongo. Make it clearer. Oh look, there you've put IoT, it's fine, I'll let you off. Mangroves, we found it. Right, I need a little bit more. You just put millions homeless, people move back. Well, when did people move back? When was schools starting to be built? It's still a little too brief, Naomi. Okay, you're in the danger of losing marks here for this model. Alright. Okay, you've put that you run out of conclusion time. So that is 8, but this will be number 9. You need a paragraph to summarise what all this means, okay? So it demonstrates no management strategies equals poor evacuation, which means because it couldn't be predicted. But then in the case of IoT, you know that you can have good management strategies regardless if it's predicted or not, okay? So prediction, right, you need your paragraph to explain the model, and then you need your sub-conclusion, and that conclusion needs to go straight back, bounce towards the other case studies, okay? Finally, conclusion. Prediction before an event is effective as seen in the case of Sendai and Kilauea. With people evacuating what to do before an event means impacts are minimised as seen in Kilauea with no deaths occurring. In Sendai, even though prediction was there to the magnitude of the event meant the prediction was over summit. The prediction was overrides due to magnitude of the event. Yeah, okay, so I've got you. In Merapi, prediction for the event. Management strategies being more successful during the eruption with 4,000. However, seen in Niragongo international tsunami, prediction only beneficial if the government knows what to do for the information. Okay, so you've got every single case study and you're plucking out what they did before. Well done, you. With no prediction as seen as in the case of IoT management strategies, after was still successful due to international aid, enabling them to cope successfully. After compared to Sendai, who was wealth enabled 3,000 troops to center city within 3 days. After the tsunami happened. Careful, you're adding a new fact and figure in the conclusion and you're not supposed to do that, okay? Salience all plays a part in how successful Niragongo was with something from, well, with warnings from Mr. Wufala being ignored meant that the hazard occurred due to low salience and education people didn't know what to do and the government had to rely on international aid from charities such as Christian Aid sending 50 million to help them to manage the aftermath due to them ignoring predictions made. But then you could also highlight, volcanoes can be predicted, and I have demonstrated in Kilauea that it can be done. Prediction plays a vital role in how effective management strategies are when dealing with events. However, prediction is only possible if a country has a strong salience and the wealth to do so, as seen in Sendai and Kilauea. However, sometimes the Magno event can override all predictions and plans to place as seen in Sendai, or management strategies can be successful due to international aid shown in the IoT. Right, what you need to do right at the end, this bit here, right at the end, is you link back to the question. You just reword the question right at the end, okay? I can see here, 7, 8, 9, right, 10, you know your references throughout, so wherever you've made a key fact or figure or you've stated something, you haven't put the reference in brackets afterwards. Whether it's HVO, UGS, anything like that, that's really, really important. So that's your target 10. Alright, but yay, you've finished it. It looks like from what you've written on, you know exactly what to do. Let's mark it then. So we've got research and methodology. If we go to 12 to 15, why a range of relevant case studies used? Yeah, you did that. Relevant concepts and theories used? Yep. Factual topical evidence, an indication of methodology. You didn't do the methodology. And factual topical evidence, yes. So which puts you back down into 8 to 11 because you haven't done the methodology. So range, scale and relevant case studies, some indication of methodology. You didn't even do that, alright, because you didn't have time. So range of case studies lacks methodology and sourcing. So you're back in 5 to 7. So I'll put you in 7. But if you had referenced in brackets after key facts and figures and written your methodology in, you would have been 12 to 15, okay? Analysis and application understanding. All research applied directly to questions set. You don't all do that. You make the reader work it out as well. High conceptual understanding. So you are showing that it's a complicated question. You're trying to look at it at all angles. A coherent argument. Yes, you do, because it's in sequence. It's logical and you can understand it. Appreciation of different values, perspectives about the question. Well, that when it comes into your hazard profile and volcanoes and earthquakes and rich and poor, so yes. Maps and diagrams are used to support the answer. Well, you do have them in there, but they're not supported because you don't tell the reader to go find them and explain it to them. So you're back down here. So most research is used to support the question. Some conceptual understanding, some appreciation, any maps and diagrams are usually used to support the answer. So you're back in 13 to 16 because you didn't do those really small things. So I'm going to put you down to at 14. Conclusion. Clearly stated. Thorough recall of the content. Ongoing evaluation and understand the complexity of the question. Right, wait 2 minutes, darling. I'm just finishing off my work for one of my students. Shh, let me just, don't talk. I'm just finishing off my work for one of my students.
You didn't hear me.
I know, shh, listening to mummy, don't say anything. So, where did we get to? Conclusion. So, you do I will put you in 8 to 11. It is a meaningful conclusion. You do recall the content of the report, and you do have evaluation, your sub-conclusions. No, just listen to Mummy, I'll put you to bed. However, you do use information that's extra that wasn't in the original report, and you're not allowed to do that. It is clearly stated, but it seems a little bit rushed. I think you can go a little bit deeper using, you know, connectives.
On the iPad.
Shh, no dog. So I'm going to put you at 10. And then finally, quality of written communication, coherent structure and sequencing the sub-report style sections. Yes. Excellent standard spelling and punctuation. You do miss some of your punctuations after your connectives. Geographical vocabulary used correctly. Yep. Diagrams and maps incorporated in text. They're not incorporated, they're there, but you're not telling me that why they're there or giving me an actual sentence to tell me go find them. Reference and knowledge material. Nope, you haven't referenced the case studies, but you did the keywords. So you go back down into 6 to 8, which is occasional evidence sourcing, because I know you would do it. You did it in the methodology, and I know you would learn to do it. Okay, so I'm going to put you at 7. So that gives you a total, if I add it all together, because I need to get my calculator out. Oop. So we have 9 plus 7 plus 14 plus 10 plus 7 equals 47 divided by, if I get the 10 plus 15 plus 20 plus 15, what's that? Plus 10, 70. So 49 divided by 70 times 100 equals 70%. Oh, what's that? 47 divided by 70 times by 100. Yeah, I thought that was right. 67%. 67%. And I will tell you tomorrow grey boundaries, but that does seem high. I don't want to. It's definitely a C and above. Could possibly be a very high B. But I'll look tomorrow. I haven't got my computer open. I don't know off by heart. But well done, Amy. They're your 10 targets that you need to do. So until I come back in the room, I need you to go back and do that. And I also need you to read the mock that I have copied, that another student wrote for you to read through as well. Say night, Ellie.
Night, night.
Say hi, Naomi. And say hello.
Hello.
That was my daughter. Bye.